We almost had some big breakouts this weekend on Bitcoin and actually on ETH, but in both cases we were actually rejected. Like, that's the Bitcoin breakout zone. We needed to break 119,300 yesterday. It seems we just got rejected and we're back at 118,500. Same thing on ETH. But ETH is a multi-year downtrend that we got to break out of. And like, literally, if you've been waiting on this ETH downtrend, it's since the top of 2021, 8th of November 2021. And we just broke through it, but we actually just rejected. And currently we're trading just below that trend line. And now the big question is whether we're going to actually break through them or whether we're actually going to get rejected by them. I'm going to give you some insight. I've got some data to show you exactly what's going to happen. Then I want to talk about tokens that are actually outperforming Bitcoin, right? And there's a cohort of tokens that are outperforming Bitcoin. And there's a lot of money to be made in these tokens. If you look at just this example over here, that's BNB. That's a token that's completely outperforming Bitcoin. And there's a lot of money to be made. Like, if you got the information early, you could have made a lot of money. Look at this share here. It's called 𝗵. And this is the new BNB Treasury company. It was just announced a few minutes ago. It was trading at $8.88, now trading at $52. It looks like it's going to open at $52. So I want to talk a little bit about these treasury companies and how you can actually make a lot of money from altcoin treasury companies. But you got to be really smart, and you got to understand the playbook. And that's really what I want to break down for you here today, because that is the narrative of the cycle. And it is this in this cycle, that is where the money is going to end up being made. And I want to show you guys how to make money, and also I want to show you exactly what not to do, because it's super dangerous. That's the part I'm going to show you at the very end. So that sounds good to you. Happy Monday, guys. Happy Monday. Let's get the show on the road. GM. What a crazy weekend. I mean, I don't know about you, but I was watching the charts this weekend, and the bubbles. When I was looking at the bubbles, I could just quickly go to the bubbles. It's a pity you can't go back one day on the bubbles, but I was looking at the bubbles. The bubbles were all green this weekend, but things weren't moving like crazy. I don't know how to explain it. Things weren't moving like crazy. We're gonna look at that. We're gonna look at the bubbles. We're gonna look at why certain tokens are actually moving. I'll show you why Pancake's moving, why Optimism's moving, Radium. I'll show you why that one's moving. I'll show you why Athena had a massive move this week. I think if we zoom out, you can see Athena is one of the ones that had a big rise this week. And then I'm going to show you, I want to talk about altcoin treasury companies, because that is the narrative that's powering the cycle. And if you don't get into that narrative, you're not going to end up making as much money as you could have made this cycle. So today's going to be a jam-packed show. We're talking about the nuts and bolts of what's actually moving this market. As I say, if that sounds good to you, then stick around, obliterate the like button. You know, like the amount of effort that it takes you guys to hit the like button versus the return that I get when you actually do it is like, it's unparalleled. For you, it's like just a click of a button. For me, it's distribution of something that I've worked like 4 hours to create today. Anyway, I'm not going to withhold the alpha from you anymore, because there's a lot of alpha that we need to actually get through, because it's a massive week this week. I want to talk to you about why it's a massive week. But first, let's get into the charts. Let's quickly just look at where we're at. So as I said to you, the Bitcoin price rejected. The Bitcoin chart actually rejected over here. You can see we did actually break above it at some point, and then we went straight back under it. We needed to go above 119,300 and to actually close there. And when that happens, if that happens, then for me, we've invalidated this correction thesis, right? Same thing with ETH. ETH is on a 4-year downtrend. Sorry, 4-year downtrend almost. And it's going to break out of that 4-year downtrend. It just needs to get through this 3840 level. And that's quite a big level. Like, you didn't expect, these are big levels. You didn't expect the prices to break out of these levels like a hot knife through butter. That's not how you break big levels. That's how you break small levels. But big levels, you need like big moves, big catalysts to actually happen, right? And there may actually be big catalysts this week, right? This is a massive week. So you've got the NASDAQ. NASDAQ is at all-time highs. The reason why the NASDAQ is at all-time highs is because Trump has concluded what he has called the biggest, he said the biggest deal ever done, but it's definitely the biggest trade deal ever done, right? So Trump concluded this deal yesterday. I don't know if you guys watched, but he actually played golf in Scotland, and after he played golf, he went and announced the biggest trade deal of all time, basically, right? I don't know if you guys watched this yesterday.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question for the EU Commission President. What are the U.S. concessions? What is the U.S. giving up
So, I mean, just to give you guys a little bit of a background on what happened in that deal. So they agreed to open up the trade at 0% tariff to US companies, believe it or not. The EU to buy up to $750 billion of US energy, to purchase vast amounts of US auto, and tariffs on automobiles reduced to 15%. So it's a massive trade deal that's powering the TradFi market. So you got the NASDAQ up at all-time highs. You have the S&P up at all-time highs. I think I had a little bit more. Yeah, I mean, I'll get you a little bit more details about the trade deal. The other thing that came out of the trade deal front is that the US and China agreed to extend the tariff pause by another 90 days. So what we know is that tariffs aren't going to be hitting this market. They're not going to be hitting this market for quite a bit of time, because China's got an extension. The EU has got an amazing trade deal. And that's why the traditional markets are pretty much trading at, well, they are trading now really at all-time highs. Also this week, we have GDP numbers coming out on Wednesday. So we are expecting, what are the analysts expecting here? So analysts are expecting 2.4% GDP. Let's see what the actual numbers are actually going to be. And remember, I don't know if we want a good GDP or a bad GDP. So bad GDP means the economy is slowing down, gives Powell a license to reduce rates. Good GDP means that the economy is heated. So I guess if you're looking at it like with one lens, the lens that you want to look at it with is to say you want a GDP that's actually lower, because then it shows that the economy is actually slowing down. And if the economy is actually slowing down, that will give Powell the license to actually start reducing rates, right? And then that brings me to the other point that we need to talk about, and that is the FOMC, which actually happens on Wednesday. It's quite a big FOMC, because you know that Powell's been under a lot of pressure by Trump to actually start reducing rates. And it's not only Trump; it's like there's a whole cohort of politicians that actually have been calling for Powell's resignation. Bill Pult, P-U-L-T-E, I don't know, Pult. He's been pressuring Senator Cynthia Lummis. Every second post that she makes is about how Powell must actually resign. And so this week we have an FOMC, and it's quite a big FOMC. Obviously, we'll be live here. We always bring you the FOMCs live. We'll be here. We'll be trading it live. There's only a 2.1% chance that there's going to be any rate cuts. I don't see how Powell reduces rates. I really don't. Inflation came in a little bit hotter than expected. The jobs market's a little bit hotter than expected. I don't see what license Powell has got to reduce rates. And if he does decide to reduce rates, how does he justify it in his talk? Like, how does he justify it? He could say, look, we haven't had the surprise from the tariffs. We haven't had the inflation from the tariffs. And therefore, we deemed it worthy to actually start looking at reducing rates. So all eyes. By the way, if you want to know who or if the rates are going to be reduced, just follow 𝗏𝗪𝗏. So they call him the Fed whisperer. If there are going to be any surprises from the Fed after the FOMC meeting, 𝗏𝗪𝗏 will be the guy reporting about it. That's for sure. So we'll keep following that. We'll also be live. Then on Friday, we have the ISM numbers, which are going to be published in the US, right? So what are the ISM numbers? So I broke it down for you before. ISM is best known for publishing the Purchase Managers Index. Now, what that does is it tracks the manufacturing sector, and it shows you if the manufacturing sector is in expansion or contraction, right? Now, why is this so important for crypto? Because there's a crazy correlation. When the ISM breaks up above 50, generally the alt seasons actually start. It's not to say that because the ISM breaks up above 50, that will start the alt season. It's just generally when the ISM breaks up above 50, it means the economy is in a period of expansion. And when the economy is in the period of expansion, that means that generally altcoins and Bitcoin and a whole lot of other coins actually land up outperforming. So we want to be watching the ISM numbers. The expectations are like 49.5. If they get above 50, which I don't think they will on this time, but we want to see it edging closer to 50, then we can see that's actually going to happen. Then the last thing is that this week, the president's report, the report that the president commissioned, so the president's working group on digital assets has completed the 180-day report, which will be released publicly on July 30th. That could mean more news from the US around around crypto. I don't expect any surprises there. I think they've been pretty transparent and we pretty much know everything. So that's like, there is a big week, and if there's going to be a big move either up or down this week, then it will be this week because of everything that's happening. I think now all eyes actually are on this chart over here, and we need to make sure that Bitcoin breaks or ETH breaks, basically. 1 second, we don't need to, okay, 1 second. Okay, so we need to break here. So we need to break up above here on ETH around above this 3.9, and we need to break up on Bitcoin above 119,300. Those are the two levels that you need to be watching. And the question is whether the momentum of this week can actually do that, or whether the momentum of this week won't do that, and then we'll get a rejection. If we get a rejection, then my correction thesis still holds. Then I do think we get a correction. And when I say a correction, ETH could go down to 3.2, 3.1, somewhere around there if we get a rejection here. So you know that my thesis last week was that we were going to get a correction after the big seller, after that big seller stopped selling the 80,000 tokens from 𝗙𝗪. Then I said, look, if we break up above this trend line, then I've got to say that the upward trend continues to run. And if we break up above this trend line, then I've got to say that this upward trend line basically continues to run, right? So you understand, like, you have to play what the charts are giving you. Right now, the charts are telling me that they're a little bit undecided. So why do I say undecided? Because they're at the top of a range. And at the top of the range, either you break through into a new cycle or you get into a rejection. And the same thing when I look at the altcoins. So let's look at altcoins. You can see that we've had quite a good week on altcoins. Like, look at that. That's a good month. A week. It's been okay this week. It's been okay. It's been a great month, but it's been okay on altcoins. The one thing that I'm watching now on altcoins is actually this chart over here, which is the Bitcoin dominance chart, right? And what am I watching for specifically in the Bitcoin dominance chart is I need dominance to drop below this level over here, which is 60.44. The reason why I say that is because that would mean that dominance is putting in a lower low, right? And we want dominance to break down. So as you see here, it so far would have put in a lower high, right? Now it's breaking down, and it needs to break down below a lower low. So if we get below this lower low, that is for me continuation that this altcoin season is well underway, right? So when I look at the altcoins, I'm looking at two indicators. The one indicator that I'm looking at is I'm looking at the Bitcoin dominance. The other indicator that I'm looking at is actually what's driving Bitcoin dominance. And what's driving Bitcoin dominance is the ETH BTC chart. Now, pretty encouraging here that there is a higher high. See, that's the high, that's the low. And then there's the higher high on the ETH BTC chart. So this chart actually looks pretty healthy. And this chart is actually starting to carry the altcoins to carry the altcoins. And effectively, that's the chart bringing down the Bitcoin dominance. So as ETH BTC breaks out, it means that ETH is outperforming Bitcoin. And if ETH is outperforming Bitcoin, then you expect the Bitcoin dominance chart to actually start dropping. So this is one of the charts that's actually moving that chart down. That ETH BTC chart finally had its second golden cross. Remember, the first golden cross on the ETH BTC charts, this one doesn't actually move. But when the second golden cross happens, which is here, that's when the altcoins actually start running, right? And so it's just had its second golden cross. So let's now hope that this all plays out. Either way, no matter which way you look at it, if you look at ETH's had an amazing Q1. So Bitcoin had July. Bitcoin had a 10% return in July, and ETH obviously came from a much lower base, has so far had 55% returns in July. That's big. Like Bitcoin 10%, ETH 55%, massive outperformance. Pretty typical for this part of the cycle. So if you look at it's pretty typical for July at this part of the cycle. That's when we actually get the altcoins actually starting to run. And the truth is, what you can see is that ETH is not the only reason that the altcoins are outperforming, or that the Bitcoin dominance is actually starting to drop. One of the other reasons for the altcoins, for the Bitcoin dominance actually starting to drop, is this new narrative which is actually going on the market. So you can see that there's like a handful of coins, like BNB coin, which is outperformed Bitcoin. This is the BNB BTC, and you can see over here, BNB BTC actually had a massive breakout. Let me just draw it for you over here so you can see. That's the chart of BNB BTC. And you can see that like there's been quite a big breakout here. And usually the breakouts are driven by fundamental news. So the charts are showing us something that's happening in the fundamental news, or the fundamentals are showing us why the charts have actually broken out, right? BNB, as 𝗟𝗏 says, is at all-time highs. You can see it over here. Another one that's outperformed Bitcoin, 𝗬𝗎, also outperformed Bitcoin. We'll talk about that in a couple of seconds. But there are a whole lot, Hyperliquid also outperformed Bitcoin specifically since April. So there are a whole bunch of tokens that are actually outperforming Bitcoin consistently in the cycle. Now, the question is, what are these tokens and why are they managing to outperform Bitcoin in the cycle? And this is really where the whole altcoin thesis actually starts for altcoins in the cycle. So you've got to really pay attention here, right? So let's talk about the dynamics of the market currently, right? So right now, as you know, the dynamics of this market are that the market is actually being fueled by Wall Street, right? So, you know, we know why Bitcoin started to outperform, and the reason why Bitcoin started to outperform in the cycle was because Wall Street had a big bid for Bitcoin. And then ETH started to outperform. And the reason why ETH started to outperform was because ETH also got a massive bid from Wall Street, right? And there's two places where Wall Street can actually bid these assets, right? So the first place that Wall Street can actually bid these assets is the ETFs. And what we know is that ETH's been really outperforming. And if you look at the ETF flows into ETH, I mean, I don't think it's changed, but it's been positive day after positive day after positive day. And you look at the numbers. So 450 million, 230 million, 330 million, 533 million. These are big numbers. In fact, it looks like ETH right now has the share of mind and share of attention in Wall Street. If you look at the Bitcoin inflows, they're nowhere near what the ETH inflows are. So that's the first place that the crypto market can actually access Wall Street capital to actually prop up the prices. The second place is the Treasury companies, right? So that's really the two funnels that are bringing TradFi money into crypto assets. So let's talk a little bit about why that's so important, right? The reason why that's so important is because specifically if you're an older token, if you're a token that's a multi-cycle token, a BNB, a 𝗬𝗎, a Solana, an Ethereum, a Bitcoin. The truth is, when you look at the crypto market cap, the crypto market cap is now almost $4 trillion, or if you look on CoinGecko, it is $4 trillion. So depending on how you measure it. The crypto market cap is $4 trillion. Now, the problem with a $4 trillion asset class is that the money that came in through USDT and USDC and through all the retail investors, that's not enough to prop up tokens anymore. That money is good to prop up small tokens. Like if you want to prop up a very small token, then no problem. Like the crypto native people can actually do that. Problem is when you start looking at big tokens, Bitcoin, ETH, BNB, Solana, the problem is that the money that we have here in crypto isn't enough relative to the inflows into ETH and Bitcoin, isn't enough to actually get the prices up. And so like the way you want to see it, it's almost like a hose pipe filling up a pool, right? Like you need a lot of money to actually prop up the level of that pool, right? And you can't get that money from little crypto land anymore. And so you have to be able to access Wall Street money. And that's exactly what the characteristics are of the tokens that are actually outperforming the cycle, right? So the tokens that are outperforming the cycle have found a way to access Wall Street or TradFi market capital to start pushing up their price. We saw it when ETH announced their treasury companies, right? That is where the turning point for ETH was. ETH was hovering around $2,300, $2,400. And then what happened was we had two big announcements. We had the Tommy Lee announcement and we had the SharpLink announcement, right? And when we had those two announcements and the related buying that came with those two announcements, well, that was what actually caused the ETH price to actually explode, right? And so what we're realizing is that in this cycle, especially if you're a big token, if you're a small token, great. Well, then it comes down to being in the trenches and getting the information early and getting a small amount of money to actually push up the price. But if you're a big token, because the pool has become so big, because the market caps have become so big, you need a big hose pipe. You need a big flow of water to actually push the price higher, right? And so this cycle's playbook is very different from last cycle's playbook. Last cycle's playbook was actually very similar. You launch a token, you do marketing, you do a pre-TG, you do a TG, and then you go to Binance. And going to Binance was effectively the place where you would access the capital, right? Because there was no TradFi money coming into crypto last cycle. And so by getting a Binance listing, what you were actually doing was you were accessing the host pipe to fill up the pool in that cycle, right? In this market, you got to do marketing, fundraise, pre-TG, TG, list on the big exchanges to access the crypto capital. But then you need two things. You need a NASDAQ listing or a NASDAQ Treasury company to actually buy your token. And what you need as well is you need an ETF. Now, the SEC have been quite slow to launch the ETFs. I'm sure they'll come, and I'm sure they'll come later this year. And when they do, that'll access a whole lot of ETF money. Yes, we do have a Solana ETF, but it's not a real ETF. It's one of those like makeshift ETFs. And so it's not really getting many inflows. It's got like small inflows, $120 million. It's not a BlackRock ETF or something like that. So the way to get the inflows is actually through these treasury companies. And now the treasury companies are pretty much all the hype, right? Like you can see the Wall Street Journal's writing about them. The hottest business strategy of the summer is buying crypto. Small companies are raising billions of dollars to buy Bitcoin and other more obscure cryptocurrency. What could possibly go wrong? They wrote a big piece here. You can see that like it really is the hottest thing in the cycle. According to that article, over $86 billion has been raised from digital asset treasuries. I mean, this is quite cool. It says we finally got our exit liquidity, and to an extent, that's actually true. So when at a certain point, when these treasury companies are buying, you want to actually be looking for the marginal buyer, right? Like I always say, you got to think of who's going to be buying your token from you, right? It's not about who's going to be buying when you buy something, you always got to think, who am I going to sell it to, right? When you buy a house, you say, okay, I'm going to buy this house. Who am I going to sell it to? When you buy a horse, like you want to buy a horse, I'm buying a horse. My first thing is, okay, if I don't want the horse, who am I going to sell it to? Same thing with tokens, right? When you buy something, you always got to think to yourself, who are you going to sell it to, right? So crypto natives now sell their tokens to TradFi natives, right? And then the next buyer is more TradFi, and then after that it's going to be sovereign nations. Now I don't believe that sovereign nations are going to be buying like, I don't know, BNB and stuff like that. So I actually think that there is a little bit of truth in this saying, look, these treasury companies, we need to be buying the tokens that we believe are going to be in the treasury companies, or we're going to be buying the ecosystem tokens of the treasury companies. But once there is already a treasury company and it is accessing the TradFi pipe, then you're no longer early, because now people have a lot of options to buy here. So Meltem summarizes, he said in the last 8 weeks, 98 companies raised or announced plans to raise $86 billion to buy crypto. Most have no revenue and minimal employees outside IR, FinOp, and legal. I think it only gets crazier. Selling $1 for $3 and clipping 20% sponsor fees too tempting. There's a lot of truth in what she says. I've been quite vocal about the fact that I do think that this is the thing that ends the cycle, but I don't think the cycle is going to end here. We can do a show about that another day. For now, I want to talk about the good thing about these treasury companies. So let's talk about the treasury companies and why they're so good for your altcoins and how you can actually land up making quite a bit of money out of them. So the first reason why these treasury companies are so good is because what they do is they give us access to US debt and equity markets. Effectively, what they do is they provide us with a platform to sell crypto investments or our crypto investments to US equity and debt holders. Now, there's a big the equity and debt holders is actually a big thing. So selling to the US equity market is exciting, but it's not that exciting because that effectively an ETF can do. What an ETF can't do is do what Saylor did, and that's access fixed income money. Now, the fixed income money investors in the US are like one of the biggest investors in the world. Now, they have to buy, they can only take out debts. And that's what Saylor did so successfully. Saylor managed to create debt instruments which give these investors, these debt investors, access to equity upside or to token upside. And he did it with Bitcoin, right? So the same thing's happening here with these treasury companies for altcoins. They are giving access they're giving us access to US debt and equity markets, which is very, very big. The interesting thing about these treasury companies, which is different from MicroStrategy, is that unlike MicroStrategy, if you think of like a BNB or a 𝗬𝗎 or an ETH treasury company, they actually get operating income. So if you think to yourself, like there's a 𝗬𝗎 treasury company or there's a ETH treasury company, unlike the Bitcoin treasury company, which only makes its money from the increase in Bitcoin, in the price of Bitcoin, the proof of stake treasury companies actually make money because they stake their assets. So think about an ETH treasury company that raises $1 billion worth of ETH. They then stake that $1 billion. If they just staked it like very simply, they get 3% return. That means they're making $30 million a year. And remember, when analysts see that the company is actually making operating income, it gives the company a high valuation. Saylor had operating income because he had the software business, the consulting business. Most of these companies don't have operating income, but what they do is they stake. And when they stake, they actually end up getting quite a big return on investment. The last thing that these treasury companies do is they absorb token unlocks. And that's like quite a big thing. Like one thing we know about crypto is that many assets have massive token unlocks. You can look at, like, for example, this Athena one. Like, just look at these token unlocks, right? And the problem is that when these token unlocks hit the market, and in the absence of any buyers, we have a bit of a problem, right? And so these companies are the ones that need to absorb. They're the ones that need to absorb or the market needed to absorb the token unlocks. But now not anymore, because what Athena did, which was very, very, very smart, is they actually set up a vehicle, or they partnered with a vehicle to actually, so they partnered with the company called stablecoin-X. And stablecoin-X announced a $360 million capital raise to purchase Athena on the open market, and will look to list its Class A common shares in the Nasdaq Global Market, right? So effectively what they created was they created a treasury vehicle which will be listed on the market, and this treasury vehicle will actually end up buying the emissions. And so this actually landed up saving the price of Athena. So if you look at like the price of Athena actually exploded. This was one of the big calls that we made in Front Runners. Athena. Look here. What's Athena's code again? It's hold on a second. ENA, that's what it is. ENA. Okay, so if you look at Athena, was one of the big calls we made in Front Runners. I think we bought it like 30 or 40 cents. That spiked up to like 70 cents this weekend, and that looks like it's pretty much on the way up. So what you can see here is that the treasury company actually saved the underlying asset and made the underlying asset a lot more exciting. I want to show you another one, which I think is an amazing one, right? So remember I said big tokens where the crypto native buyers can't actually be driving the price, don't have enough force to actually drive the market up, right? So now you've got BNB, right? So look at the price action on BNB here, right? BNB is now at all-time highs, and you can see that like in the last couple of days, it's like really shot up. What actually happened here? Well, there was speculation that there's going to be a big treasury vehicle launched, and there was a big treasury vehicle launched. It was launched, actually the official announcement was today. Full disclosure, one of our funds is actually an investor in this thing here. What happened here was that these guys got a guy called David Namdar, and he was the co-founder of Galaxy Digital. I've actually known David since 2017. And what he did was he partnered up and he got backing from people like 𝗍𝗍, and they launched a BNB treasury vehicle. And what you can see here is that as soon as they announced it, Binance started to outperform Bitcoin. BNB started to shoot up, right? And if you look at the BNB related altcoins, so you can see, for example, Pancake. Okay, today maybe not as good. Sorry, let's look at the last week or the last day. Here we go. So you look at it, Pancake up 8% today, and there's a whole lot of other BNB coins that are actually running because of this. Now, this is what you can see here is very interesting. This is the company that they actually created. This is the company that is the treasury vehicle. Now, for those of you who don't know how this works, you basically find a company that's almost dead. So you see, like, this is the company that was called Vape. I don't know if it was the Vape company, but there was a company called Vape, CEA Industries. And you can see that they at one point did very well. Their share price went to $876. But since then, the company subsequently seems like it almost died, like it flatlined over here. And then what happened was these guys went to this almost non-existent company, and they said, look, we want to create a BNB treasury vehicle, which they did. Today, it started trading at $9, and it went all the way up to $62, right? To $62. And so what you can see is, again, the Treasury company not only was amazing for the asset, but there's opportunities to be made in the stock market. Now, I want to just quickly spend 2 minutes talking about the opportunities that are in the stock market. So there's a lot of these offers going around. And in the offers, sometimes they actually tell you what the ticker is. Like, to be honest, I knew what this ticker was a long time before this ticker was actually published. And I mean, with many others, with the 𝗬𝗵 vehicle, with the tonne vehicle, with a whole lot of others, we know the ticker well in advance. Guys, if you get word of a ticker like this, and you will get word of a ticker like this, don't trade it. Seriously, do not trade it. And the reason is because the SEC are quite sophisticated. They have quite sophisticated systems. They know when these announcements are made. They see irregular buying. They see irregular volume. And they can track it back to your brokerage account. And then within, a month, 2 months, 3 months, you will get taken for insider trading. So even if you do have the tickers, and I promise you, I've had this ticker and I've had multiple other tickers for very long. And as tempting as it is, because you know it's going to do a 5x when it actually launches, don't touch the ticker. Because if you do, it is inevitable that you will get taken down by the SEC, because the SEC have amazing systems in that regard. I've seen it happen. I know people that have actually landed up in jail for things like this, not crypto related stuff, but other stuff. And I'm just telling you guys to actually don't trade on that. So that's not one of the ways that you want to be making money. Where you can make money is you can buy the token, and you can actually land up buying the token ecosystem. So you know that BNB is going to go up because of this thing, and therefore things like PancakeSwap will go up, and if you carry on going down, you'll probably find a whole lot of other BNB related alpha tokens that have actually landed up going up, right? So that's like the one that you do. I'll show you another one, right? I think the other thing which is super important, and this is for me the biggest point. So imagine that you're an investor in the United States and you know about this exchange called Binance, and you've wanted to invest in this exchange called Binance. You want to get exposure to this. You're an American institution or an American fund, and you want to know that Binance is the biggest exchange in the world, and you want to get exposure to that token. How do you do it? Well, you could say, okay, well, look, let me just open an account on Coinbase. The problem is that if you go and look at BNB and you look at the token on CoinMarketCap or on CoinGecko, right? And you look at the market cap and you look, where is this thing listed? It's not really listed on any exchanges in the US. Like, it's Binance, MEXC, all of these are non-US exchanges, right? You want tokens that are listed on Kraken, tokens that are listed on Coinbase. And BNB, for example, is not listed on Coinbase. So now just think about this. As an American, as a big American, obviously retail investors, they can find their ways. But if you're like a proper investor in the US and you want to buy and sell BNB token, there's nowhere for you to do it. There's nowhere for you to get exposure to the BNB exchange. And you're a pretty smart investor. You go to ChatGPT and you say to ChatGPT, you are a crypto research analyst and you need to compare the most recent information in a table of Coinbase versus Binance to determine exactly how much bigger Binance is than Coinbase. Can you generate the table, right? Hopefully when you generate the prompt, you don't make as many spelling mistakes as I made, because you got much better spelling than me. But what you can see is that an American looks at this and says, okay, look at this. Registered users, Binance is 1.6 to 1.7 times bigger than Coinbase. Daily spot volume, Binance is 5 to 6 times larger in volume. Q1 spot trading, Binance is 5 to 6 times the size of Coinbase. Basically, in derivative volume, Binance is 200 times higher, which means that Binance is much more profitable than Coinbase. The only thing is that there's no way for an American investor to get access to BNB because it's not listed on any American exchanges. Now, all of a sudden, there's a Treasury vehicle which is listed, and now funds can actually get access to the Binance exchange and the Binance ecosystem. And that will land up driving or giving Americans an outlet or an inlet, if you want to call it that, an inflow outlet. What do you call an inlet outlet? The outlet is the exhaust pipe. What's the inlet? You know what I'm talking about. I mean, I could use a crude example about, I was going to say, like, no, forget about it. I don't feel like this video being taken down off YouTube. It's like, it's basically like, you know what I mean? Like, the one is, no, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. Don't even ask. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. just one's like the front and the other one's like, no, forget about it. Let's just carry on. So you can see that we've actually provided a venue for US investors to actually invest in BNB. And this one, coincidentally, is actually backed by CZ. Binance co-founder 𝗕𝗂𝗪 is set to back a new treasury firm that will offer investors BNB. Cool. Yeah, see, 𝗬𝗪 knows exactly what I was about to say. Exactly. Okay, so let me give you another example. Now, this is a thesis that I landed up writing in Frontrunners. Now, guys, I just want to show you how much alpha there is in Frontrunners before we actually talk about the thesis here. I mean, we were talking yesterday about buying Pump Fund, loading up on Pump Fund just before Pump Fund actually landed up running. I mean, I lost 1 kilo, which everybody landed up seeing by mistake. I sent that picture by mistake. Anyway, we were talking about, I'll show you some other opportunities that we actually landed up speaking about. We spoke about another opportunity. You can just see there's so much actually going on here. Now, if you want to be part of this trading community, guys, there's a last chance to get a... But 30 days is a multi-year downtrend. Okay, sorry. There's a 30-day last chance, risk-free, love it. In 30 days, you'll get your money back to access it today. At the end of this week, we're not going to do the money back guarantee anymore. So if you want to join us for a month. Trust me, it'll be the best investment decision you make. If not, send me a mail, you'll get a refund, and you can leave. But do me a favor, this is where all the calls actually end up happening, including the call that I'm about to show you now. So another token that really has no access port in the United States is Telegram, TON, right? So we know that there are some problems with the TON token, but I want to just show you something over here. So if you look at TON, TON is the one crypto asset that has the most distribution out there because of the Telegram app, right? And if you look at the markets where you can buy it, I don't see anything to do with big US exchanges. Is there a Kraken here? I'm actually not sure. I haven't seen Kraken here. So according to this, there's no, really for US investors, there's no way for them to invest in this Telegram ecosystem or the Telegram app, but they know that it's one of the biggest chat apps in the world, right? But now there is a new treasury vehicle launching with the foundation. So you can see the TON Foundation to launch a $400 million treasury partnership. So all of a sudden, you're going to start getting this foundation or this vehicle actually giving Americans access to buying TON. And we know that the Telegram app is big in the US. We know they've also now launched their wallet in the United States. So this thing's actually going to end up making quite a big noise. And that's why I said, look, if I'm watching what's happening with these treasury companies, I'm watching the effect that they're having on token prices. Very soon they're going to announce a TON one. I mean, they've announced it, but very soon there's going to be much bigger announcements, and you're going to know who's in charge of it. And again, I know all of this because you know we're actually investors in it, but I can't talk about it because I've signed an NDA, and also because I don't feel like going to jail. And the SEC does watch my show. I know Paul Atkins is a huge fan of my show. 𝗕𝗏𝗪, huge fan of my show. So I'm not actually going to talk about what I know because I don't feel like going to jail just yet. Yeah, so that is the Telegram one. And my thesis here is soon there will be a treasury vehicle. It will give access to all the Americans to start buying the asset, and then TON will break this downtrend. Now, I know what you're saying. Pavel is locked up in France. He could be arrested at any point in time. The reality is that Pavel he's on a travel ban. He's not really allowed to travel outside of France, and he hasn't been indicted for anything yet. He hasn't been charged with anything yet, right? And if he hasn't been charged for this long, then what happens when the travel ban is actually released? What happens then? Well, then the price of TON goes up and you get a massive inflow of capital. So I think that's actually where the opportunity is in TON and not a downside. It's actually an opportunity here. Someone says Pavel's been in Dubai for months. I read that too, but actually no, I read that he's in France. So I don't know whether he's in France or not. He does have massive travel restrictions. Let's ask ChatGPT, right? Where is Pavel Durov now? Let's actually see what ChatGPT says. Where is Pavel Durov now? Let's see if it actually tells you. I don't think it'll tell you. So it'll probably say, he's legally permitted to reside in France. However, he remains under judicial supervision in France where he was arrested. Okay, so that's that story over there. So when he's still under this judicial supervision, so when the judicial supervision ends, then we know the chart will go up and the Americans will actually be buying. Another announcement that happened today was this one here. It's called 𝗪𝗏𝐶𝑦 Ventures. 𝗪𝗏𝐶𝑦 Ventures is the 𝗬𝗏 vehicle, right? So this is a 𝗬𝗏 vehicle backed by the 𝗬𝗏 Foundation. It's run by a guy called 𝗪𝗿'𝗺. We know him. Again, very, very, very smart operator. He's got a big plan to get Wall Street to actually buy a lot of 𝗬𝗏. And yeah, you can see that. So he's got a big plan to get Wall Street to buy a lot of 𝗬𝗏. They made the announcement today. Again, share went up from $1.82 all the way up to, holy shit, now trading at $6.79. So big returns to be made. Big also returns you can see here because the price of 𝗬𝗏 started to respond to the fact that the Treasury vehicle is actually starting to rock. So again, let's just quickly recap. We have a narrative this cycle. The narrative is these crypto treasury companies. It's specifically good for big tokens, and there's only very few tokens that can actually do it. Like, I think you can have like a treasury company on Bitcoin, ETH, Solana. There isn't a big Solana one yet. We know that Joe McCann was raising, should be raising, but then all the FUD broke about his fund, so I don't know if he's actually going to carry on raising. It's very good. It is very good for actually driving up the business. The flywheel, Listco buys the token price appreciates, lower the MNAV, equity price appreciates. Basically, you're just trying to accumulate more tokens per share, just like Saylor did. All right, so that is the thesis on treasury companies. Let me know what you think about it. I also want to show you one or two other opportunities out there. So guys, I don't know how many of you followed our 𝗵𝗫𝗪 bot. That is the 𝗵𝗫𝗪 bot. This is a bot. We called him 𝗵𝗫𝗪. He was named after 𝗦𝗛𝗢𝗵𝗪. And his role, his sole purpose for existence was to accumulate a whole lot of Bitcoin. So we're almost a month in. He was launched on the 1st of July. It's now the 28th of July. How's he doing? He's got a 30.99% return, which is a 300% annualized return, more or less. The most that he's ever gone down is 6.97%, and he's got a 76% winning trades. Now, I want to show you my account because you know my account. This is my account. This is my copy trading account. On the 𝗵𝗫𝗪 bot, I put in $45,000 on the 1st of July. I made myself 23. I put on like just after 1st of July. I made 23.76% return, basically, right? So I've made $10,000 on $45,000 in a month. Take that and annualize that. You're talking about 200-300% returns, and that is on the 𝗵𝗫𝗪 bot. Again, if you want to join the 𝗵𝗫𝗪 bot, you have to sign up with this link over here. And then just click on this link over here and you'll immediately follow the 𝗵𝗫𝗪 bot. But what we also realized is that this part of the cycle is going to be the ETH part of the cycle. And what's the point of having a bot on Bitcoin? Well, not what's the point. We should also have an ETH bot. And so I asked the guys to build me the same bot to make him a touch more aggressive, because ETH is a little bit more aggressive, and to launch another bot, but the bot must only trade ETH. And so they did. And so we launched a bot. It's called, Joseph Lubin. So this is Joseph Lubing. So he's lubing while Joseph Lubin is buying ETH. His objective is just to buy ETH. He was launched yesterday. He is going to be a little bit more aggressive than, like right now, he's got a 343% annualized return. He's going to be a little bit more aggressive than the Bitcoin bot because he's an ETH bot, and ETH moves more aggressively in this part of the cycle. Now, again, if you want to follow this bot, again, you have to open an account on Bluff and you have to use this link. Otherwise, it won't let you in. And then you click on the Joseph Lubing bot and you follow with a Joseph Lubing bot. Now, I'm pretty confident about this Joseph Lubin bot. I actually want to copy it, so I'm going to copy him here. Let's see if it lets me here. I'm going to put in like $50,000 into this one as well. Because I just think, select a copy trading. I don't have a copy trading bonus. Okay. Enter an amount, but 50,000. Hold on, why isn't it letting me do this? Yeah, okay, transfer from funding to, no, it should be right. The money available, so I've got available funding, $50,000, total investment. Let me try and maybe do it a little bit less, $45,000. $45,000. Okay, cool, hit it. Get it? Okay, I wonder why it's not letting me. Okay, so I'm going to work out why it's not letting me move my money or which account this has to be in. But long story short, I'm going to put in $50,000 into this bot. So please leave one space for me here. There's only 200 spaces on the 𝗙𝗵𝗵 bot, on the 𝗕𝗟𝗪𝗵 bot. Again, if you want to catch this part of the cycle specifically on ETH, because ETH is going to go, this should get you better returns than like just holding ETH, because it's trading in and out so many times. Again, the process to do that, you sign up with this link, and then you click on this, and you'll end up following the 𝗕𝗟𝗪𝗵 bot and the 𝗙𝗵𝗵 bot. And I think you've seen the returns that we actually ended up making here. Yeah, so that's it for today. Let's quickly just look at the markets before we go. How are we doing? 118. So far we rejected. Look, I'll be honest. I think 𝗕𝗏𝗵 is right here, and I think we are actually going to reject. I mean, we are definitely going to break out. I just don't think we're going to break out yet. I hope we do, and if we do, as I say, like, I'm open to suggestion. But otherwise, I think there's a little bit of a rejection here. Remember, these are very, very, very big resistance areas. This is not like a small. This is not like you're going to a kids' football match. This is like a final. This is big. Once we break here, then we break here, then the next stop is 4,000, and then the next stop is basically the all-time high, and then that's when the real alt season starts. So just a little bit more patience. Actually, let's just see. People are flagging me around the newsroom. Yeah. All right. We'll see you guys again tomorrow. Until then, trade well, my friends.